the crafty thing that may have blanked Bill from the sidelines this fall. Haha. What does voluntary really mean? And a massive change to the quarterback draft process. We've got all that more. I'm Jason Fitz, and it is time for Inside Coverage. Charles Robinson, Jori, Epstein. I'm Jason Fitz. Look, Jori, I try and make you laugh with my little lead. It's been a little bit of a moment, but I felt good about this one today. We were getting ready, crafty things that may have blanked Bill from the sidelines. I felt like that was some quality work. Look, I can promise everybody less poop jokes this week than we had last week. It'll keep C-Rob happy, but I can't promise professionalism. I felt good about that one.
I think I'm just having PTSD about all your poop jokes last week and being like, oh no, if he's starting out this hot, what is he going to get to later? And then it's also confusing because it's like you start talking, so I have to turn the microphone down because you're not a quiet talker. And then at the same time, there's all of these things just coming at me. So good morning to everybody.
Yeah. By the way, this is quiet for me. Like I'm dialed back. Like this is a more even keel level of me. Thank you very much. I am going to speak of emojis for a moment because that's what everybody thinks of. Cool moment here. I want to take a second and promo as we get started that we will have live draft shows on Yahoo Sports on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook Thursday and Friday. But this is really cool. We're a second screen experience for draft night, but we're also going to have access to emojis. So if you're an iPhone user and you're out there and you get into the Yahoo Sports app, you'll be able to immediately assign an emoji to every pick in the draft. And you'll also be able to see how some of us have assigned emojis to each of those drafts as they go. Unfortunately, I can confirm the poop emoji is not one of them. So as a Raiders fan, I feel safe. No one's going to put that on my Raiders at 13. But C-Rob, are you ready for because I got to be honest, man, like I'm going to be sitting next to you. We're going to be hanging out. I'm not sure. You don't seem like the pick is in. I can't wait to put the fire emoji next to it sort of guy.
I think we should have emojis for your jokes in the show.
Oh my gosh, I'm so in. And then they can go across the screen. Like, have you guys seen the new technology that if you put like a thumbs up at the camera, thumbs up comes all around? I would love that because then like the entire screen is just going to be like a boo. No,
by the end, Fitz would be asking me like, did they only give you the closed eyes or rolling eyes emoji? Is that all you have to choose from?
I can always tell, like, I get two
different...
I like the
melting face emoji.
That's another good one.
I get two different reactions. See, like when I say something, Jori usually, like, she gives me a pity smile, and that's okay. I'll take that. That was clever. And C-Rob just sinks a little bit. Like, C-Rob's not short. I feel like by the end of our time working together, C-Rob's going to be like 4'7", because every time I lay one of these jokes out on his very professional, like he's a pro, he's just like, oh, there we go. That's it's the sinking C-Rob we can follow.
Like I spent 20 years building my credibility.
This is a good mix.
All right, so we've got a lot that we're going to do in this show that I'm mega pumped about, including some draft breakdowns coming. Again, don't forget Thursday, Friday. You can watch us live for your second screen experience. But in the meantime, big news, and it's what I referenced with my truly incredible writing at the beginning of this podcast. According to Don Van Natta Jr., Seth Wickersham, and Jeremy Fowler, there's a great report on ESPN. I want to give the guys credit. They did nice work on it. But y'all, this essentially comes down to the conversations happening behind the scenes that left Bill Belichick standing on the side, or not standing on the sidelines, I should say, come football season. So this comes down to communication with Robert Kraft and Arthur Blank. C-Rob, as you read through this, as somebody that has done this for so long and does great work, what stood out to you in the report?
Highly credentialed reporting in that report.
Yeah.
Okay, like Seth Wickersham, Don Van Natta have been peeling back the layers of the onion in the NFL for a long time now. And as time moves forward after these reports, a number of the reports have seen, kickback. And then as times move forward, it's been clear they were dead on in their reporting. And obviously, Jeremy Fowler has journalistic chops. There were other contributing writers to this, a researcher, very, very well in terms of the assets that were set forth by ESPN to attack this. Very, very well reported and researched piece, I would say. I wrote about this in January about like how Belichick got bypassed by the Falcons. What's interesting to me, though, is contextually, I was led to believe by people in the building that it was definitely more overt what Bill ultimately wanted to do once he got in that organization, that he was going to be someone who wanted to have his hands around the entire organization, just like the Patriots. Well, subsequent to reporting that, there continued to be this string of reports where it's like, no, Bill didn't say explicitly he wanted control of everything. And it was frustrating me because I'm like, why is there this disparity there? I thought that this was clearly something that was overt in the meetings. Now we find out there were 2 separate meetings, one on Arthur Blank's super yacht, which was just Arthur and Bill, people who were not in that meeting, and then a subsequent meeting after that between other executives in the building. I think what became clear in this ESPN report to me that shed more light on than what I even knew was there were people inside the organization that were just calling bullshit. That they were like, I don't believe this. Like Bill is saying the things he needs to say right now, but we all know that once he gets in here, it's going to be implemented the way the Patriot way was implemented, and he's going to have his hands around everything. And whoever he's saying he'll work with, whatever he's saying he'll do right now, there were clearly other people in that building, multiple people, according to this report, who just were not buying that with Bill Belichick. And that's ultimately how, when they sat down and said, okay, let's create our list of finalists for each, individual person who's kind of weighing in on this, Bill wasn't even making the top 3 on the list. So I think the way it unfolded to me is not extremely surprising. The one thing, though, that you allude to, though, is Kraft having that friendship with Arthur Blank, allegedly reaching out to Arthur Blank and saying not to trust Bill. If that is true, and again, I trust the reporters, I trust the credentials that are on this, it is indicative that series, the dynasty we saw, that was very leaned against Bill Belichick, that definitely sort of tilted toward Kraft and Brady as being, hey, the sort of the real brains of the operation. Yeah, but Bill was sort of the problem child in the middle of all of it, that the Krafts definitely had ties to in terms of, the copywriting of that, being involved in the producing of it, at least some aspects of it. It feels like the Kraft-Belichick relationship is in shambles right now. And I don't know how they ultimately put that together long-term. Jori, we've both covered this league for a while now. You've seen the dynamic that can occur between coaches and general managers. But coaches, general managers, owners, when it gets this messy, particularly with people who have achieved great things, you tell me, how do you put this together long-term? There's a lot of bridges that are being burned right now.
No, absolutely. And again, if you think of what's at stake for Bill Belichick, this isn't just, I want a couple more years in the spotlight, a couple more years to coach the game I love. This is his record as the all-time winningest coach is at stake because of this. And I think that's very serious. Some of the phrases that really stuck out to me in this story is when you have the Falcon sources talking about what Bill Belichick did and didn't want from a personnel control standpoint. It wasn't, he said he would defer to the general manager. He said he would defer to Rich McKay, who has a really big voice in that organization. It was, he pledged his, quote, willingness to coexist. Coexist and defer are very different. And I do not think that was an accidental language. And I thought another thing that really stood out to me was one of the sources who told these ESPN reporters, quote, if Bill goes on to have success and Tom already had success, then who does Kraft have to blame? Like there's this element that if both of these guys can succeed without the Patriots and without Kraft, how much of this was the Patriots lucking into 2 guys who are just going to change organizations versus the Patriot way being something that the Patriots uniquely built. And so I think we have a lot of tension here. And again, I also wonder if the impact of the docuseries coming out influenced people willing to talk for a story like this. Because if you have this docuseries that had the Kraft's name on it, and there are people in New England who are very, very invested in Robert Kraft being put into the Hall of Fame. And that is something that I would say that's their top professional goal. And so I think that until you kind of like feel like the docuseries promotes that narrative, and then Bill Belichick is like, what do you think I am, chopped liver? Like, yes, I screwed up Mac Jones. Yes, we didn't win the last few years. Not every team is going to win all the time in a league of parity, but I still had how many Super Bowls?
Oh, by the way, I would say that we coexist with some of Fitz's jokes.
Oh, come on.
I'll give a 2 thumbs up to Ciro's joke.
Thanks. Yeah. I just got schooled, by the way, in one line. My God. Here's the thing, guys. And I said this yesterday for Yahoo, like in an immediate reaction video. To me, this stood out as it's a bad look for everybody. I mean, at this point, what it really says to the world is that even if Bill Belichick goes in and says the right things, nobody's going to give him benefit of the doubt. And he's being painted as an absolute egomaniac, which I know a lot of coaches are, but at a level where an organization simply doesn't believe him, even if he says the right things. I don't know how you break through that. If you're Robert Kraft, you look petty as hell, man. Like you moved on, and now you're suddenly calling up Arthur Blank and saying, oh my God, don't hire him. And if you're Arthur Blank, man, you don't have the big boy pants to make your own decisions without having to talk to Robert Kraft first. So like, to me, all the way across the board, I found myself looking at every single party involved, C-Rob, and saying, man, this is not a great look for any of you.
Well, and here's the thing, like, I think we all have to put ourselves in this situation. If you're Arthur Blank, right? You have a relationship with Robert Kraft. You're very close. You're two owners who have collaborated on things in the past, particularly, league meetings. I mean, they've been confidants. There's no doubt over the years. So if you're Arthur Blank and you're potentially going to hire Bill Belichick, and you sit there and you hear something from Robert Kraft, how do you absorb? Are you like, this is a friend who's coming to me and actually kind of doing the difficult thing and giving me his honest opinion, someone he spent decades working with? Or do you approach it from the standpoint of like, well, is there like an axe to grind here? Is there, did the marriage really go that badly that he feels like he needs to, warn me away from this person? I would ask you to, and Dan Wetzel, our national columnist, wrote, I thought, a great piece on this. Where's the element of loyalty if you're Robert Kraft, right? Because we're talking about decades where Bill Belichick was part of something that built your franchise into a multi-billion-dollar organization. Now, obviously, TV deals had plenty to do with that. The arc of the NFL had plenty to do with that. Terrible organizations were turning into multi-billion-dollar organizations over the last couple of decades. Washington's a great example. Not run well, didn't win anything, still $6 billion valuation on that team when it goes to sell. But that said, there's no question that the winning that Belichick was a major part of, as big a part of as Tom Brady, as big a part of as Robert Kraft, if not a bigger part than maybe both of those individuals, because Bill was part of drafting Tom Brady. Do you not look at that person and go, okay, he has given me this run of success that has raised the profile of my organization? I remember going to Foxborough, and to be honest with you, it was not impressive going and seeing the facilities.
And now
there.
they have a Trader Joe's right by the stadium.
That's
the most impressive part. I love
that
it.
massive
so
complex, right? That massive complex around Gillette.
A Trader Joe's.
Oh, okay. Thank God for the Trader Joe's. But if you're Robert Kraft, how do you not look at this and go, okay, I got feelings here. Yeah, I got problems. Yeah, Arthur Blank is my friend. But I do owe Bill Belichick a lot of my Q rating, my profile as an owner, as a heavy hitting owner being raised over the last couple of decades. A lot of that is owed to the success we had on the field and by relation, Bill Belichick. How do you not have an element of loyalty? And at the very least, just take a mulligan on it with Arthur Blank and go, hey, look at the track record. I don't need to tell you anything realistically. Look at the track record we had. If that's what you want and you feel like you have the runway to allow Bill to shape it into that, so be it.
Which I think we would be unfair if we didn't at least say that Patriots spokesman Stacey James did say that Kraft steadfastly denies saying anything negative to Arthur Blank about Bill Belichick and says that Kraft advocated for Bill to get the job. People can choose whether or not they want to believe it, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that. There also is the interesting financial element, and I don't know where the Patriots are exactly financially, but that Belichick's $25 million per year or so salary would have been offset by anything he got from the Falcons. And so you kind of have the ego versus the finances there.
I will, though, say specifically, like, C-Rob, all I can do is look at my own life when you ask questions about Robert Kraft. Like, I made no secret of the fact that I got laid off last year by ESPN, right? I was part of a huge talent cut. I posted a video on social media right after that. And because I felt like a lot of people were saying a lot of things about how you think somebody feels. And my video was one of gratitude. Like, they changed my life. They changed my platform. Right. They changed my opportunity. You'd be hard pressed to even to a close friend that comes to me today and says, hey, what do you think of ESPN? You'd be hard pressed for me to find a negative thing to say about it because they changed my life. When I left the band Perry, coming off of 6 number ones in country music, everybody wanted me to have something salacious to say about a band that I was in. Whatever feelings I may have, even to my closest friends, I keep those things wildly tight-knit in my soul because at the end of the day, the man Perry changed my life. Like, I do think that there is some human element. If I'm going to go work for Robert Kraft and I'm looking around and saying, so this is what he does to Bill, like, let me be very clear. If he's doing this to Bill, and I trust the reporting of Seth Wickersham, like I will die on that hill. So if this is what he's doing to Bill, what is he going to do to everybody else? Like, I think as much as we sit there and say, well, players don't want to play here for this coach and people don't want to work for this, like, I think it's fair to look at Robert Kraft right now and say, if you're doing this to Bill Belichick, why the hell would anybody want to work for you? Like, this is a terrible look for him, in my opinion.
But let me ask you this. Is what Robert Kraft said new? It's new that he said it aloud and that he said it to Arthur Blank, but who thought you could trust Belichick to just be a company man? That's one of the reasons he's great, is because he does it his way. I mean, there's a great line of, he's a great listener. They just have to be smart ideas. And if you give him good ideas, he'll listen to them. He doesn't want bad ideas. I mean, we knew that this is what he wanted to do it. And C-Rob, again, I know your reporting was a slightly different tone, but your reporting back then when it was like, he wants to run the place, whether he said that overtly to some people and not overtly to the other, like, this is how the guy built his Super Bowl resume, the best resume of a coach in NFL history. Of course, he's going to want to operate on that. And I think there's a difference between you can't trust him, he's not going to be warm and part of the family, versus he is going to backstab you. Like, it is in Bill Belichick's best interest to win as many games as possible, as quickly as possible, for whatever franchise would choose to hire him again. And that is the case with the Falcons or anywhere else. And so I don't think that this trust is going to be like him taking apart your organization. It might just be he doesn't want to like sit and be buddy-buddy with David Tepper critiquing his play calling. Well, that's probably a good quality in a coach to have.
Yeah, but you got to let Arthur Blank make that decision. All I'm saying is, like, look, if C-Rob comes in tomorrow and decides that he wants to date my ex and he calls me and says, hey, what do you think? Like, I got nothing to say. Like, look, you've lived, if we're friends, you've lived through enough of my experiences anyway. You've heard me talk about this enough anyway. I got nothing, no gain in poison in the well. Like, there's just no, right. That's, I think, to me, the hard part about all that.
And Jori makes a good point. Like, it's better to be feared, right? Written by Seth Wickersham. Now, again, this is my own journalistic vantage on it. I read that book and I sat there and said, okay, Bill Belichick is definitely a source in this book. Robert Kraft is definitely a source in this book. Tom Brady, definitely a source in this book. All these people, I have no doubt, spoke off the record, on background, whatever, while that book was being written. And I'm pretty sure everybody in that book realized everybody else, when somebody said something in that book, they're like, okay, that really happened, because I know Bill was a source of this book. I know that Robert was a source of this book. I know that Tom was a source of that book. You can all just assume it's probably first person accounts that are involved in the majority of these responses, particularly when it's about each other. So you had that template in the book already, right? Then, by the way, you had the Dynasty series was out. Like, this was something that was already in the pipeline. It was on the way to being aired. There was no question about what was going to be in it. People were getting advanced copies of this. Would not have been hard for, I mean, look, Robert Kraft could have been like, I'll just get you. Like, here's the Dynasty series. Let's say he gets the call early from Arthur Blank, right? Here's the Dynasty series. You go ahead and take a look at it. You tell me ultimately what you think. Another thing I would ask you too, when Jori says, this wasn't necessarily new, it does add another layer to when that Dynasty series came out. You're sitting there and you're going, when did these interviews take place? Because Robert Kraft is saying some stuff about Bill that is pretty rough. Like, there's his elbows were pretty sharp in the Dynasty series. When the hell did he say these things? Were these interviews pre the 2023 season? Because I got to believe Bill Belichick, who sat down for one-on-ones in that pink, he wasn't sitting down during the 2023 season, right? He's not going to do that when you're in the process of a football season. So if this was all happening prior to 2023 and Kraft was saying these things, what the hell would have happened if Bill Belichick goes 13-4 in 2023? Does all that stuff hit the cutting room floor? Like, can you have something? What if Bill comes out and turns the corner and the next thing you know, here's the Dynasty series on this great period, and here's the owner now saying all this kind of messed up stuff about his head coach being a problem in the organization. So this feels very complicated. It definitely feels like there's a far more of a burned feeling on behalf of the ownership. And I can't help but focus this through what Jori said, and this is important because we've been on the other end of these conversations. There is an element of trying to get Robert Kraft into the Hall of Fame. Okay. And when that happens, there is a lot of shaping and molding and polishing and erasing that occurs as there's a push. I was there when it was like, the Dallas Cowboys were pushing to get Jerry Jones in the Hall of Fame. And let's get you a one-on-one with Jerry when you come through in camp. And it was all a very, very big effort to make sure that this push ultimately was successful. It's not rare for that to happen. It's happened with past commissioners. Paul Tagliabue was one where there were people pushing, trying to get Paul into the Hall, trying to get, reporters, writers to sit down and rehash the legacy and what was there. Part of me wonders if there is a polishing process happening right now in terms of what Robert's role was in all that success. And if we're being honest about it, when you watch the Dynasty series, what do you walk away with? You walk away with going, he was a major player in all the success that happened here. This was the guy that was holding it all together between his quarterback and his head coach. That's what it felt like when I ultimately watched that series. And for the family to have a hand in the production, the copywriting of that series is, like how infomercially does that then kind of feel on the other side of it?
And I'll add that anytime people give access in any industry, and for us in the NFL, I always say, what's your agenda here? Because people aren't just giving out access when they don't have to, and people can report on their own now. I always say we have to get players to decide they, 1, want to tell their stories, 2, want to tell it to someone else rather than themselves, and 3, want to tell it to us, Yahoo Sports specifically, rather than another organization. And so when you have people talking and you think, why are they talking? To me, people who are talking for the Patriots, I think until Robert Kraft is in the Hall of Fame, if he gets in the Hall of Fame, and I think the goal is to get him in during his lifetime, we have to consider if that is part of the agenda.
Let me ask you one more thing before we move on this, because it was also made fairly clear in that article that, friends, people believe that he's not done. He being Bill Belichick, he's not done, wants to coach. And then that means we automatically assign the Cowboys as a name to this. So Jori, knowing what you know about the organization and Jerry, what did you take away from that?
Yeah, I was cracking up. It's like, he'd be interested in the Cowboys, Eagles, and Giants. It's like, he'd be interested in the 3 biggest, highest profile NFL teams. That's good. That's so thoughtful and generous of him. I was laughing at the idea that the
Falcons, you say the Falcons don't fit in that group?
Cowboys, Eagles, and Giants, they were talking about Howie Roseman having conversations with him after the season, which Howie said on the record, yeah, we talked. That doesn't mean I was trying to hire him. Whereas when I talked to Jerry Jones at the Senior Bowl in January, he told me he did not want to have conversations about what they talked. But if you guys remember, Jerry then said to me, I know him personally and I like him. There's no doubt in my mind that we would work well together. And I was cracking up as Jerry's don't ask me about him. And I'm okay, just tell me what you respect about Bill Belichick. You don't have to talk about him as a candidate. And Jerry both said that there's no doubt in his mind they could work well together. And also he repeated, I want to make real clear, I wouldn't have any problem working with him. The irony here is the Cowboys facility, as I've said on the record multiple times, would drive Bill Belichick absolutely crazy. The Dr. Pepper Keurig headquarters, a 20 or so story glass building, overlooks the Cowboys practice field.
Everybody's watching.
You want a Spygate situation? Anyone can watch outdoor practices. And then when you get to indoor practices, they have corporate people coming through all the time. They have people coming for tours right past your office. I mean, there is nothing off limits if it can make money and it can make attention. And I just think Bill Belichick does not want to coach now. And I also think that Jerry Jones does not want to just be Bill, do what you want. The only thing I will say is a big part of this whole, the Falcons didn't hire him is these owners not wanting to let Bill do what he wants, let Bill do it on his page, and Robert influencing Arthur Blank. I think Jerry could be convinced to be no, I'm going to stick it to them. we each have something to prove right now. We each want to prove that we can do this together and that we don't need everybody else. Like, let's go win a Super Bowl together. And I do think that if Mike McCarthy is not the coach after 2024, Jori will pursue Bill. And I do think that the year off and the desire to spite, whether that's the Krafts, whether that's the Patriots, whether that's the 7 teams that passed on him this year, will influence Bill Belichick's desire to seriously consider the Cowboys and just be like, yeah, I can do it. Yeah, I can win. Like the same way that Robert doesn't want Bill to have one elsewhere and Tom to have one elsewhere. If Bill can win despite the Cowboys noise, that actually would be another like feather in his cap. So I think it's something to watch.
I'll go ahead and say right now,
it might be a disaster, but I think there will be interest.
I'm
absolutely
not saying that it will work.
I'm saying I think that the egos of Jori and Belichick might actually like align to both think that this disaster is a good idea.
Okay, but here's my thing. It's not just Jori. There are other people in that Cowboys organization. Okay, there's Steven, there's Will McClay. I mean, there's a personnel department that is used to having an ability to, talk to the coach, and there is still an element of collaboration, in that building. Okay, and I think what I'm more concerned with is what you've brought up before, Jori, about the Cowboys, is that little bit of a country club kind of vibe at times that may be holding back aspects of that organization. If you're sitting there and you're saying, let's be hopeful, let's project the ceiling here, it's that Bill comes in, the country club vibe goes out the door, everybody falls into line. It's that like kind of military background of Bill. And the next thing you know, the Cowboys finally break through because they brought in something that was a completely different, it was an agent of change that was different than any other agent of change that they had probably since Jimmy Johnson in terms of the personality, the way he wants to run things. Completely polar opposite ends of the spectrum there, by the way, those two individuals. But also, by the way, two individuals, Jimmy Johnson and Bill Belichick, that are very close, that spend time with each other every single offseason talking about things when Bill was in the league with the Patriots. Could it work? Yeah, I think it could work. But I think there are a lot of people internally there that there's going to be some kicking and screaming about the Bill Belichick approach versus what I think a lot of people in the Dallas Cowboys organization are already used to. That could be fine. Maybe that's what they need. I'm just saying that that's typically not a clean situation as you go through it. And if you got to win now, don't you want it to be kind of clean, kind of a clean transition? Or are you going to go through the kicking and screaming for how long? A season, 2 seasons? Are you going to have change in the roster? Like what's going to happen in the organization that is going to turn the corner quickly and also embrace sort of the militaristic approach of Bill?
I do think that the ego of Bill Belichick will make him think that he can do it more quickly than he maybe actually could. And the last 2 things I'll say, and then I know we want to move on, is one, if Jerry Jones were ever going to pull a trump card of this is my decision and I don't care that you guys are mostly running the organization, I think it would be to hire Bill Belichick. And 2,
Fair.
While I extremely respect Will McClay and what he's done with the personnel department, a big reason why the Cowboys have been able to keep him in this pseudo GM role where he's basically doing the work and not getting the credit for it is because his son Gabe has been in high school. He didn't want Gabe to have to move. And he was like, I'm staying here as long as my son here. Well, Gabe's graduating next year. And so it would not surprise me if a year from now, Will McClay is the general manager of another team, which also kind of takes out that whole, the Cowboys have to worry about if it works for Will McClay to hire.
You're going to sacrifice Will. So you're going to sacrifice. I mean, like, think about that though. Let's
Bad
think about
idea, but yeah. No. I think I think Will will be leaving because they're not giving him a GM title. None of this I'm saying is going to get them to where they want to go. All of this, I think, is possible because of the egos involved.
There's one thing we can be sure of. I already have spent months listening to major media outlets give us the worst takes about the Cowboys I've ever heard in my life. If Bill Belichick in January of next year becomes the coach of the Cowboys, we might as well just cancel all other sports because that's all anybody's going to talk about for months. I can't handle it. I don't need that. That's too much in my life. They can't get together because it's too much.
Has Hard Knocks ever done a training camp and in-season Hard Knocks with the same team? Because I'm pretty sure they'd go, how can we figure this out and tell the Cowboys, we want to do your preseason and the in-season Hard Knocks on you guys. We'll take you off the Hard Knocks schedule for the next 20 years. but we want Bill Belichick's entire first season on Hard Knocks.
Sequel to the Dynasty. Look what it's like to work for this owner. Wow, this is great.
They're just, instead of saying coming up next on Get Up, it'll just be coming up next month, all month, every hour, every segment, Belichick and the Cowboys. That's all it's going to be. All right, one other big piece of news, Justin Jefferson not at the Vikings voluntary workouts. I want to shape this into a draft conversation. Did I mention that there's a live stream draft second screen option you can watch for Yahoo Sports? By the way, so any movement, either of you, like, is this substantial? Is there some wild scenario where JJ suddenly gets shipped out in draft night because he just can't stand it? They can't stand it. Everybody's unhappy. C-Rob, is this all for nothing and JJ's going to be right there and everybody's going to be happy at the beginning of the season? Or is this substantial?
I wouldn't take anything off the table with Jefferson. Brandon Ayuk is another one that I think bears watching as we go into the draft. There's no doubt. It's not like the Vikings want to move this guy at all. But we also don't know specifically where this contract impasse is at. And you've already had the organization come out and say, basically, this guy's going to be the highest paid, non-quarterback in the league. Well, if you're going to do that, you're talking about a $35 million wide receiver. That is very steep. And if you can't meet on an organization, if you can't meet an organization that's already approaching it from that standpoint, that it's a pretty significant impasse. I think the draft compensation. So I had a chance to talk to somebody about potential draft day trades with veterans. Jefferson's name did come up. And the one thing that he said to me is, I've never seen in league history a situation where you can meet the demand that they're going to have for Justin Jefferson, which is going to be multiple first rounders. Okay. It's not going to be like a Tyreek Hill situation. Some of these other trades have gone on. We're talking about starting baseline 2 1s plus some additional compensation on top of that. And then you turn around and you give him the richest non-quarterback contract in the history of the NFL. He was like, first off, there's not even a lot of organizations that could do that from the draft capital standpoint, and then also the financial capital standpoint when you look at where salary caps are projecting out. He said particularly some of the teams that have a need at wide receiver, you can't just shoehorn this in. And then he said, look at the depth as well of the wide receiver class. And he said, how many years in a row have we talked about the depth of the wide receiver class in drafts? We seem to have deep wide receiver drafts every single year. It doesn't feel like that's going to change. Maybe next year challenges that. It's so rich. It is just so rich to deal for a player of Jefferson's talent at this point, but also price point and asset, trade-off. It's going to make it very, very difficult for a move like that ultimately to happen.
And the type of team that would be able to pay the type of money that Justin Jefferson is going to command? A team with a rookie quarterback contract and a great offensive coach that they don't have to worry about leaving. So, yeah, the Minnesota Vikings are one of the best positioned teams, if not the best positioned team, to be able to take on a Justin Jefferson contract. I know we were talking before we started recording. Daniel Jeremiah, the NFL Network analyst, had a call yesterday and had a great line that if you were to give truth serum to the agents of all the top quarterbacks, every single one of them would say that they want to land in Minnesota, which, C-Rob, I know you've talked about this a lot on the show previously, this idea that the offensive line, the play caller and Kevin O'Connell, the weapons you have with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, it's such a good place to land relative to what top quarterback. Yeah, inside weather, crazy concept, like Chicago versus Minnesota, same division, very different conditions you're playing in. I think there's this idea of I don't know, maybe this is me being cynical, but to me, it's just not news when a guy skips voluntary workouts. It's not even really news to me when a guy skips workouts in June. It maybe is news if he skips the first week of training camp. Guys do this every year. Everyone and their mom is just I'm good. The NFLPA would tell you, why are we training 3 months before the season? We should just have a bigger ramp up period for training camp.
I don't think teams are panicking anymore, right? Either. I mean,
no.
I don't.
Also, this isn't a new coach, new offense. Justin Jefferson knows. Maybe you could say you want to start developing the chemistry between a new quarterback and Justin Jefferson once he gets in the building. Maybe, but that quarterback's not there yet.
Yeah, and I think
that's
sure
the variable that we have to
be able to work.
We have to understand that not every situation is the same. not every skipped voluntary. Like if you're not trying, I understand that if you're a team that sucks and everybody's at your voluntary mini camps and they put it out on media, they did for the Raiders, right? They're like, look at all the people that are here, of course, because your team sucks and you're trying to make things better. I get that. If you got a new head coach, you got a new quarterback, you're learning a new offense, you just want to be a rah-rah guy. Like I'm willing to give you bonus credit for being there. I just don't think if you're not there and you're Justin Jefferson, it's not like, oh man, he really needs to be there. He's got some things to work on. Like he's the best, right? And it's not going to, none of this will matter when the season starts and he's Justin Jefferson, right? It's just, I think with the timing because of the draft, it becomes a story because that's what everybody's trying to figure out. Speaking of the draft, we're going to get into some of it. We got some great breakdowns. Jori's written some stuff. C-Rob's written some stuff and some Giants quarterback talk. So we got a lot of draft to break down. So far, this show gets 2 thumbs up, a fire emoji, and a heart emoji. We'll see if we can keep that going after the break. I hope Stone keeps that in because my voice just cracked. Puberty gets a fire emoji too.
Please keep that in.
That's it's a daily battle with me, and I don't know
That's
if my voice is
nature being
ever gonna
stop it with the emojis, talk with the self-congratulatory
that is
feedback.
That's the gods telling me that I've said too much about the emojis. By the way, did I mention that you can second screen watch the draft by hanging out with us in the Yahoo Sports app? And if you're an iPhone user, you can tap emojis as you go for the picks. You can not only see how other users are rating the pick, you can see how super fans of teams are rating the picks and the experts. Be sure to hang out with us Thursday and Friday. Shameless promotion. All right. Like this is a podcast. Everybody's listening to this whole thing. They're like, shut up. Just stop talking about it. All right. C-Rob, Jori, you guys have both written some really good stuff on the draft. I want to get to all of it. But first, C-Rob, you and I are going to be sitting next to each other. I've requested a couch. I hope it's an awkwardly small couch so that our arms are touching like a leg the whole time, like at an airport where I'm in the middle seat. But we're going to be sitting on a couch the whole time talking about quarterbacks. There's a lot of eyes on the Giants quarterbacks. Any expectations? Anything you're hearing so far from New York?
First off, I'm like 3 times your size.
I know.
So you're going to look like my kid, okay,
Right.
sitting on a couch
Well,
together.
usually I'm the kid. It's so nice to share that honor.
My feet haven't touched the ground in a couch in years. I'm 5'9", and my feet do not touch the ground in a couch.
Yeah.
So be prepared.
Can we get a picture of you guys? It's going to be like when Shaq takes the picture.
I'm a shade under 6'4" and probably double Fitz's weight, okay?
I wouldn't put you at 6'6".
I am literally...
I did not realize how tall you were until we met at the Super Bowl. It's the
C-Rob's
first time we were all in
really
person.
tall.
And C-Rob walks up and I'm like, sorry, Stone, you're gonna have to bleep this. But I was like, holy like C-Rob walked up and I'm like, yeah, I've worked with a lot of former offensive linemen. C-Rob, you look far more offensive lineman-ish than like the Golics do. Let's go, buddy. Like,
it's
I
sad.
thought you were 6'6".
When I started at Yahoo, I had more of like the tight end physique, and then like apparently I needed to be scooted inside to a tackle position and add a lot of weight, which I was glad to do over my 20 years at Yahoo and back on. If you saw the pictures of me when I started and now, you'd be like, did you eat the first guy? Like, what happened to that guy?
Which I will say, going back to how long C-Rob has been at Yahoo, when everything was coming out yesterday on Belichick and the Patriots, C-Rob texts C-Mac and I being like, hey, here's the story I wrote when I talked to Belichick in 2007. And my mind was just blown. Like, I know C-Rob's a legend. I know he's so well sourced, but like, he was talking to Belichick in 2007. I was like criticizing my middle school principal in the school newspaper, lack thereof, in 2007. Like,
Wow.
It's crazy. You've been around so long. And it's not in an old way. It's just like you're so legit.
Producer extraordinaire Stone.
That,
Stone, can we get a segment added to the show next year that's called Group Threads I'm Not On? Because I didn't get any article. Yet again.
Well, and this is a good story with Jori, by the way. We don't want to go completely off the rails here. We will revisit this, okay, since we got to get to the Giants. But Jori did get her middle school newspaper shut down. Reporting a story that involved the principal.
Unwilling to be accountable got this newspaper shut down.
It's the most unbelievable story. Next to,
I was just trying to do accountability journalism.
It really is on
school.
brand. Like anyway. Okay, let's shift back to the Giants. I apologize for everybody for us getting off on that crazy tangent. The interesting thing about the Giants. So when the process started and people started to connect a quarterback there, I was like, "There's no way, right? Like they can't do this." And when I started to reach out to other individuals that either, knew Brian Daboll, had been through the Giants organization, would have some tea to spill on the quarterback situation there. And if they really would make the change, I'm thinking you have a front office and especially a head coach where 2024, like maybe their jobs are on the line, does not seem like a good time to downshift into a rookie quarterback who might not play right away, by the way, for your organization. And then what if you go through a struggle and you get fired? And like, it seemed like a messy scenario, but a GM said to me, and this, I hate that I continually forget about this. He said, you have to look at draft picks in windows. He said, you're looking at it as like a 1-year, one-off situation. But if the Giants organization is really doing its due diligence, it's looking in a 2-year window and going, okay, can we afford to pass on a quarterback now and stick with Daniel Jones in 2024? Maybe. But then what's available for us in 2025? Like if the best quarterback we can get is now, and we can start developing that player now, why the hell would we put that off to maybe 2026 if we don't see a quarterback next year? And as this is all developed, and I've seen some people stick a multitude of different quarterbacks with them, like I feel like especially Drake May and JJ McCarthy seem to get connected to them quite a bit. Someone straight up said to me, like, the top 4 quarterbacks in this draft next year would be the QB1. Or like, and now things can change over the college football season. Maybe Carson Beck at Georgia really blows up and lives up to that ceiling and wows everyone. But he said, as of right now, when you're projecting it out and you're looking at 2025, you have 4 quarterbacks on the board that would be QB1 in 2025. If you have a chance with the 4th quarterback off the board this year and you like him, and you know he would be QB1 next year, and you could get him, let's say, at the Giants pick at 6, why would you not do that? Take the quarterback while you can get the quarterbacks. Kind of important. And maybe in 2024, you don't have the level of success you hope as a Giants organization, but internally, maybe you go, look at the connection Brian Daboll is already building with this guy. Look at, you can project out the Daboll rookie quarterback relationship, and that could potentially keep him in the fold beyond 2024, regardless of results.
I'm glad you mentioned this because I had an agent call me yesterday being like, what do you think the Giants are going to do? And we were having a conversation about sort of, if this agent's player goes to the Giants, do they have to worry that a new front office will be in by 2025 and thus their player will be like the old regime's guy and not valued as much? And what I thought was interesting is I was saying, like, to me, there's a difference of, is Joe Schoen still going to be there in 2025 versus Brian Daboll still going to be there? I would be very surprised if Joe Schoen is not still there in 2025 as the general manager. I don't know what to make of the Brian Daboll situation for multiple reasons, including the on-field success, including some of the murmurs that have been coming out about the way that staff feels working with him. And I really like Dabes, but there are definitely conversations from Wink Martindale, their defensive coordinator this past year and beyond. And so what I want to know is, if I'm Joe Schoen, I want to advocate to get the quarterback. I want to do the rebuild. I want to do it right. But is Brian Daboll going to be advocating for that same thing in the room? Because is his job on the line if he doesn't get it to the playoffs this year?
Yeah, I mean, that's the natural question.
And how will that influence his ability to be like, yes, we should take a guy who in 2 to 3 years will be the quarterback for this organization?
And by the way, you have ownership that came out and said, yeah, I gave the green light. If you want to take a quarterback, if you see the quarterback that's there, I'm on board. Go ahead and do this. I saw that more as a green light to the front office than the coaching staff. Like, to me, that's what I felt like was Mara coming out and saying, yep, I gave a thumbs up to our general manager that if you see the right quarterback there, go ahead and take that guy. I did not take that as like, oh, don't worry, Brian Daboll, you'll be safe. If we go and get a quarterback in this situation.
Which, on that note, I want to ask you guys, the agent was posing me this question. Is there any chance the Giants say, hey, we don't want Daniel Jones's injury guarantee to become a problem the way that Russell Wilson last year kind of got benched at the end of the season? We're going to go do Drew Lock or a new guy? Or is that just like, we're not at that point?
I mean, that I understand what you're saying monetarily, but like, don't you believe that you still want, no matter who you draft, I can't imagine that you want to completely rebuild the room right now, right? Like, I mean, Daniel Jones at least gives you the bridge that you need in the meantime, C-Rob, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, well, it makes sense, but he's also a quarterback that can be injury prone, right? He has a style of play where he gets out there and he can get wild. I think far more than even Russ. Like, Daniel Jones uses his legs to play his best football. So yeah, that's definitely scary. I mean, it's not beyond comprehension to think that Daniel Jones, suffers a lower body injury running the football late in a season with the Giants where he's a bridge. Now, that said, you can mitigate that by, if internally you're looking at a quarterback, I guess I would ask, if I'm the general manager and I'm talking to the head coach, I would say, okay, we have our bridge in place. He does have an injury guarantee that is potentially problematic. How long does he have to bridge? Like, can we get potentially Drake May or JJ McCarthy? Can we get him rolling by October? Can we get him rolling by the beginning of November and then mitigate this scenario where we now slide him in and we start their developmental process? Daniel Jones slides to the backup position, or probably the third, just, you're not going to see the field kind of a position, so that we mitigate the injury guarantee. It's tricky. Like, that's super tricky. And I would also say that plays into how messy this kind of decision is. It's not just, I talked about the 2-year window and all these other factors that seem to leave that door open for the Giants. But yeah, the injury guarantee, that's a problem. And you just signed this deal, and
you had an easy out in the deal afterwards, so you're not guaranteed to be paying it. And I also think it's hard because, again, if you're Brian Daboll, you're like, when he was healthy, look what we did. Look how we got to the playoffs. Look how we defied expectations. So I'm not trying to create this.
They caught a lot of green lights.
Oh,
stealing that phrase.
So
yeah.
I'm not trying to make this a Daboll and Shane aren't on the same page report. I am trying to say that there are a lot of reasons to believe that's what is in the best interest for one, and what would make sense for one is not the same for the other. And I think that's an interesting dynamic.
So this kind of ties into, though, to what you wrote about, Jori, on quarterback evaluations, because we are definitely seeing change in the way teams approach their quarterbacks, evaluate their quarterbacks, and figure out what to do with the quarterback position, right?
Right. Yeah, no, I think it's so interesting because I've been working on the story on sort of how teams evaluate quarterbacks, how the position has evolved, and how in some ways the demands of the position has evolved. 2 stats really stood out to me. The first was I wanted to understand, how often do we see quarterback go 1, 2, 3 in the draft? Because it really feels like we're heading for that this year. Not 100%, but I feel pretty sure that like everyone thinks that's where we're heading. And if you look at it, it happened in 1971, 1999, and then 2021. That's the only time we've ever seen quarterback go 1, 2, 3 in the draft. So we were going like every 20 plus years that this was coming about, and teams were like, no, we just need to get quarterback as soon as possible. And now 3 years after it last happened, we're already there. I added to that, I reached out to the NFL league office and I said, hey, have we ever had a time where the top 3 teams in the draft traded away their quarterback between the end of the season and the start of the draft? And they looked it up for me. Their data goes back to 1970, and this has never happened. So you have the Chicago Bears traded away Justin Fields, the Commanders traded away Sam Howell, and then the Patriots traded away Mac Jones. Those were 3 guys who were drafted by those teams, had not yet finished their rookie contracts, and were now dealt to another team, which again should lead into the suspicion that the team is going to take a quarterback. And I just think it kind of shows, yes, we know there's pressure. Yes, we know we have trigger happy owners, but we have actual data that says you as a quarterback and you as a team with that quarterback have to succeed more quickly than we've ever seen it before, or else you don't have a chance. And so when I started asking different head coaches, general managers, scouts, like, what do you most value in a quarterback? 2 of the things that stood out were, 1, processing is huge for these guys. Like, of course, decision-making and understanding how to read the field has always been a big thing, but they want to know that you can process now what you're going to have to see in the NFL, which, by the way, is different spacing than you had in college, like different level of speed, different level of play, but you can't wait 3 years to get the processing. Even Patrick Mahomes, who sat behind Alex Smith for a year, like, that is not what we're expecting from these 3 guys. And the other thing being that these coaches have had to adapt accordingly, because these coaches are saying, like, I can't just be like, here's what I want, and if you're not there, I want you to become that. No, you're not, as a coach, going to be able to keep your job if you don't adapt and say, this quarterback has these strengths and these weaknesses, and I need to tailor my personnel and my scheme accordingly to accentuate the strengths and to minimize or mitigate or hide the weaknesses. And so I think it's really interesting how this impatience at the team ownership level has actually changed the way that teams are evaluating quarterbacks.
And a thing, it's so much good stuff, Jori, by the way. It's unbelievable. Like, the amount of it was another thing I would add to this. It's the first time we've ever seen 3 first-round quarterbacks traded on their rookie deals, because I'm throwing Kenny Pickett in there, right? So Justin Fields on his rookie deal, first-round quarterback, a lot of starts. Mac Jones on his rookie quarterback deal, a lot of starts. Kenny Pickett traded on his first round deal, like plenty of starts. Like he had enough starts that you're sitting there in the league.
Yeah.
And then Sam Howell, who was not a first round quarterback, obviously drafted later in the draft, but another guy on his rookie quarterback deal who had some starts traded. I feel like I don't want to say it's the David Tepper effect, but I think of David Tepper when we see an offseason like this. I think there are a couple of different things that come into play. Number one, veteran quarterbacks are moving a little bit more than we expect. Like Russell Wilson, Matt Stafford. We have seen a migration of veteran quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins. We're seeing capable veteran quarterbacks moving around teams via trade. Russ obviously gets released by the Broncos, but again, I think that has a hand in it. But I also go back to when Tepper is making all these moves, like constantly. It started with when he signed the deal with Teddy Bridgewater to be a starter after letting go of Cam Newton. The thought process going back to that time, when I talked to people in the building, what Tepper was asking Matt Rule, what Tepper was asking Scott Fitterer at that point was, do I have, now this was post Teddy Bridgewater's first season. He was like, I don't have a Super Bowl winning quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater. I don't feel like I have that guy in the building right now. I think it played in Marty Herney, separating from that organization as a general manager. I think he was upset. But Tepper's mindset was, until we resolve it in a way that makes sense, we will keep making this move at the quarterback position until we find the guy that we feel like we finally landed on. And in his mind, he was, I don't care if we have to do it every year. We're going to resolve this situation. And when Rule was fired in that organization, Tepper met with some people in the building and he said, here's your assignment. You have X number of years, get the quarterback, figure it out. That was the first thing he said when he met with people in the building who remained after Matt Rule was fired. And I think that there is an element of that proliferating a little bit amongst owners now. It's just, okay, we feel like we have more data. We feel like we can read this situation a little earlier with quarterbacks than usual. We're not going to we don't have patience with there's no 5-year plan for coaching staffs anymore. There's not even really a 3-year plan for coaching staffs anymore. Why are we still doing that with quarterbacks? We'll see if it works. We don't know yet whether or not that's really going to pan out. Maybe Kenny Pickett has success at a second life elsewhere. Maybe Justin Fields has success elsewhere. Maybe Sam Howell takes the job from Geno Smith by the time things are over there in Seattle. These early decisions that are being made, let's see in the rear view down the line whether or not some teams pulled the trigger too early.
But there's another variable in all of this, guys, that I think is an important part of the conversation. Because my first year covering the draft in 2017, I remember saying that year, man, if you try and get a quarterback and you miss in the first round, it's a 5-year mistake, right? Like, because you get 2 years to develop them. Year 3, you expect them to blow up. Year 4, they don't. Now, like, that's the way it used to be. To your point, it's not that anymore. But the economics have changed. Like, I just looked it up right now on Over the Cap. If Bryce Young were to be cut today, the dead cap number on him would be $31 million. We see more than $31 million. Like $31 million isn't nothing.
No, Russ Wilson, $85 million.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, if you look at, all right, if Bryce were to be cut next year, $22 million, like because of the change in the salary cap and the way that they worked the rookie contracts in the draft several years ago, now you don't have the investment that requires you be patient. If you can turn around and just buy a new car every year, you don't really care. So like they're just churning and burning players.
That's such a great point. And especially if you approach it from the now when you have to make an extension decision, it is a way bigger deal than it used to be in the past. Like think of the drive in Chicago, right? To deal Fields. I think if this is 10 years ago, if it's 15 years ago where quarterback salaries were 10 years ago or 15 years ago, maybe you're not so afraid to commit to that extension, seeing what you had seen from Justin Fields at this point, right? But now you're the Bears and you're sitting there going, okay, well, we feel like, yeah, he's made progress. There are definitely deficiencies in these different areas, but we're kind of pressed right now to make a decision on his 5th-year option, okay, which is significant. We're talking $23, $24 million. And then beyond that, we're going to potentially have to make a decision on a franchise tag, which is in the $40 million range. And then beyond that, if we're talking about an extension, we're talking about like a $40 million, APY for, if you believe you have a franchise quarterback, you're not escaping a 40 million APY extension at some point. Now, maybe it's not completely real. Maybe there's, the trap doors where you can get out of it. Okay, fine. But it's just the dynamics that are now coming into play financially are so much more significant at the quarterback position now than they were years ago. It does force you to sit there and think, okay, we're 2 years in. Where is his trajectory? And do we need to start thinking about rebooting that position again? So we're on a rookie quarterback deal again, because this is not necessarily working. The finances have definitely played a part in this, and we saw it play out with Fields. There's no doubt.
Which also, when you're thinking, Fitz, about the 20 plus million that you were mentioning, if you cut Bryce Young, that's if you cut him, not if you trade him. And so then you can offset it even more, which is what we're seeing from these teams. Like the teams I mentioned, the Bears, the Commanders, and the Patriots, they all traded their guy.
It is interesting because the shift in economics, you take the investment out of day one, allows you to have more movement. The shift, to your point of C-Rob, of requiring a decision in year 4 or year 5, essentially starts the clock the day that you're drafted. Yep. Like, hey, I got to know. I got to know faster. So, like, it's funny that the CBA and the way that they negotiated rookie deals specifically, I think, has created this churn and burn at the quarterback position. And now, why wouldn't you? Like, that's the biggest thing to me is because if you're going to be facing Mahomes and Allen and Burrow and Hurts and all of these great young quarterbacks for the next 10 years, if you don't have one that you think can put you on that same platform and you're picking in the top 5, it's sort of hell, why wouldn't we try a quarterback? Like it's just you constantly, until you've got, a Justin Herbert, then you're always going to be looking for one of those types of guys. I actually think to all of this, like to put a bow on it, I also think this movement makes sense. Because if Justin Fields isn't the guy, then get rid of him, right? If Kenny Pickett isn't the guy, then get rid of him and keep trying until you find the right one. All right. So one other thing, C-Rob, I know you've been writing on that impacts this year's draft class. I think is really interesting is the running back class, because last year, we saw some big names go early. People had a lot to say about that. But this year's draft class is much different. What are you hearing about it?
Well, it's interesting. So Bishop Sankey in 2014 was the latest a running back ever came off the board, like the first running back off the board. The latest a running back has ever gone is 54th to the Tennessee Titans. That's when Sankey was the first running back selected in the 2014 draft. By the way, 2013, 2014, neither of those years had a first round running back, right? This is trending toward being in that class. And there may be the first running back off the board. I mean, probably not going to be to Dallas at 56, but it's feeling like this is the class that lacks that star at the top. And I think it's a very real possibility we could see the longest running back drought in a single draft that we've ever seen. We could end up seeing, I don't think it's going to be like the 3rd round when guys start coming off, but when you talk to different people across the league, you kind of ask them, like, where do you think this running back run is going to start? They can't even really agree on who the bona fide number 1 running back is in this class. Like, it's sort of, you definitely have a swath of opinions where it's like, hey, Texas, Jonathan Brooks, if he hadn't torn the ACL, where he was trending, and even though it was really only 1 big year of production, he probably would have been running back 1 in this draft and would have been a much easier decision. The ACL tear complicates things with him. Obviously, you don't get the pre-draft agility work. You don't get the pre-draft running, a lot of the different things that help to sort out these running backs. But it's like everyone in the class has some different warts. There's some different deficiencies. And so, like, what's going to end up happening, if all these personnel individuals I talk to are right, we're going to have this glut of like 15 running backs that are going to go off somewhere near the end of the 2nd round, and then like through the end of the 4th round, maybe very top of the 5th. That's a lot of running backs jammed into the middle of the draft. But I don't think even now, and I know people are going to point to Brooks and say he's the consensus number 1. I don't know if that's the case, because I've heard people high on a multitude of different guys, and then you will call the next person you want to talk to, and they'll be like, no. Like, he's 6th in our stack. There's no way he would be the number 1 running back in our stack. And some of that has to do with scheme, right? Like, it's a lot of these picks will probably be, how does this running back fit the scheme, what we like to do? There's certainly the feel I have gotten. There is not one player that anybody's looking at and going, yeah, he's the slam dunk, do it all, 3-down running back. He can fit any scheme. He can do whatever you want. There's no Bijan out there like that. There's no, Jahmyr Gibbs, who's obviously taken 12th by the Lions. And highly critical. I think a lot of people highly critical of that draft position for Gibbs. Turned out really good, but he was a rotational player, obviously, with Montgomery in that backfield. It's really interesting to sort of see this happen now. And that means there's no question in my mind this is happening. 2013, 2014, and 2024, we will have 3 drafts in like an 11-year span where no running back is taken in the first round. And it's that continuation of the devaluation of the running back. As I wrote, I was like, the devaluation of this position actually begins on draft day. That's when they start to be devalued on draft boards, and then it just continues on.
No, I think that's so interesting to hear. Great research by you, because last year when we did have Bijan taken high and we did have Jahmyr Gibbs taken highly, I had some people telling me like, hey, it's not actually that we devalue running backs on their first contract, it's that we devalue them on the second. Like a guy with 5 years of control who can still offer a lot, especially if he can be a threat in the receiving game as well. That actually is more. And so to see that is not something that's consistently going to happen year to year, even when those guys were effective last year, is super interesting. NFL Next Gen Stats, which is sort of their like advanced analytics wing, came out with a stat this week that basically said that as much as we feel like everyone in the NFL is getting bigger, faster, stronger at every turn, actually every position except for offensive line and defensive tackle has gotten lighter in the last 20 years, and like pretty significantly so. And one thing that they were wondering if that was going to impact is the run game, because if the offensive line is able to sort of manhandle their opponents in a different way because they're not getting lighter and everybody else is, how does that impact the running backs? But I think what's ironic about this is going back to what C-Rob was saying in terms of how we view the running back is when I did a story in the running back market at the combine, a lot of people were telling me it's not that we care less about the run game, it's that we value less the degree to which a running back impacts the run game. We would rather invest in our offensive line who could help both the pass game and the run game and clear the holes, and a running back can't do it without them. And oh, by the way, we need to pay 5 of them to some degree. That is more what's going into it. And so I think that to me, there's still a distinction we should be making between the value of the run game and the value of one running back's ability to impact the run game.
And the embrace too, like, teams are far more willing now to say, we're going to have 3 running backs, and they're all going to have their own, like, this is how we're going to use this guy. This is how we're going to use this one. This is how we're going to use this one. We don't want a Derrick Henry who we're going to have to give, 25 carries to, who we're going to have to depend on in the second half, wearing down defenses and then, curb stomping teams. That's not what we want. And by the way, those guys are, super rare. But the funny thing is too, though, even though they say this, right, I do notice they all glom onto the prototypical, hey, he's 5'10" and 220. Like he is the built in the lab running back. Like it was when we were doing the all juice team, Marshawn Lloyd, the USC running back, was very much like the prototypical 5'10", 220 kind of guy. Does a lot of stuff you watch, when you talk to GMs, personnel evaluators, scouts, they're like, you watch it and there's all this translatable stuff that he's doing that he will do on the NFL level. They still tilt into those players, even though they say, they will tell you, we don't necessarily need the prototypical bell cow. They love it when they see someone that looks like a prototypical bell cow. Lloyd ends up on the all juice team. And I was telling Charles McDonald, who obviously did the team with me, I said, yeah, I've got a number of people really like Lloyd, like in these middle rounds, 3rd, 4th rounds. And I said to him, but the big problem is, he fumbles. And C-Mac says to me, yeah, he's like, I was watching, cut-ups on him, and the 3 greatest plays I saw, 2 of them he fumbled at the end. like, oh, that's a pretty significant problem. And yet you have these people and teams going, well, yeah, we can figure out how to fix that. Like, he's like, he has tiny hands, but we can still figure out how to fix that with him. I still think they'll make excuses for the prototypical players, even though we think that, they're starting to get more into specialization and away from those players. They still love it when they see someone come through the pipeline, just like they do with quarterbacks who's, 6'3", 220 with an arm. Like they always lean into those age-old boxes of what works.
I also don't think we're far off from a world where if you're going to be a 4th or 5th round pick at the running back position, you just take the NIL money, stay in college. You can make more money at this point being a running back in college.
Man.
Stay out of the game, get to the game when you're going to.
Yeah. I mean, it's although the pushback on that, I think, would be sure, the NIL money is good now, but you're going to have a limited lifespan in the NFL. So really, you should get to the NFL earlier so you can earn as much money as you can while you still have, that lifespan. Like Braylon Allen's 20, just turned 20, had 3 monster years at Wisconsin because he classified early, and graduated from high school a year early. It's insane when you look at that guy and go, he's 20 years old. I guarantee you, if he goes back to Wisconsin, the NIL money would have been bonkers, would have been insane. But it behooves him at 20 to get to the NFL as soon as possible because he could potentially have the rare 10-year career as a starter if he can work himself into that position.
That's super fascinating to consider how the impact of NIL on getting guys to the NFL and the timeline in which they get to the NFL might not be the same for running backs as it is for every other position.
I think it's going to take a few years to figure that out, but it's something that we'll all be keeping an eye on. C-Rob, you mentioned the All Juice team. We got some news on that, of course. So tell everybody how they can support Terez Paylor's legacy and update us on the All Juice team.
And I'm going to interrupt first to tell everybody to go read the All Juice team, listen to the video. C-Mac and C-Rob, they had a podcast on it. We've got video clips on the site, and we've got this awesome spread that they put together, really detailing this amazing work. And I'm going to steal C-Rob's words, and I think they said it was the 10-year anniversary of the All Juice team. So you really got to understand how Terez started this process and how C-Rob and C-Mac so beautifully carry it on. So I'm just going to shamelessly plug it to start off this end.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I went back and dug up his first All Juice team, and I was like, where the hell is this quarterback? I'm like, how does he not have a quarterback on his first team? And I realized when I looked at year 1 to year 2, how he dramatically changed it from that first year, the inception, and then really sort of what it is now really truly launched, but it continued to develop the 6 years that he did it. But yeah, 10-year anniversary. This is the 4th year we've done it since Terez's passing. So if you could check that out, really appreciate it. And remember that go to breakingtea.com/Terez. The All Juice tee and hoodie is available. It's great. It's awesome. I love rocking mine. And remember that the proceeds from that go to support the Terez Paylor Scholarship at Howard University. You can also contribute to that directly, as well as the scholarship in his name at Mizzou, if you check out our podcast description.
Okay, I have one more note of enthusiasm, which is even if you didn't know who Terez was, and I know a lot of our listeners did, C-Rob had this insane stat where Terez's hit rate on prospects was way higher than any NFL team. So even if you're just a fan of football and you didn't know Terez personally, if you want to be well, who is still going to be in the league in 5 to 10 years? That's what the All Juice team is giving you.
He did. When I went back and looked at that team, he picked 22 players, and he didn't do it. He didn't fill out the full team. Next year he decided I'm going to do a player at each position, fill out a full roster. The first year he just picked 22 guys he liked. And he was like, okay, here are the 22 guys he liked. And I looked and I'm like, wait a minute, a lot of these players are still playing right now. And this is 10 years later. And I thought these must all be first round picks. As I'm scanning through the list, 5 of them were first round picks. And I think first round picks, the standard shelf life first round picks, pretty long. You'd be surprised. I think it's 8-9 years when you average it out. But 5 of them were not. There were second and third round picks that he nailed who had 10-year careers. And I'm like, my God, if any personnel person says to me, here's 22 names in this draft, and then 10 years later he goes, hey, 10 of those guys are still playing, I'd be like, holy shit, this guy definitely knows what he's doing. It was impressive. It was very impressive.
Well, check it out. Great work by you guys, obviously, and we love continuing to try and do everything we can to support Terez's legacy. Obviously, draft is next week. We'll be back then. You can follow us on social. I'll be back Monday with Zero Blitz. Big week on Yahoo Sports. Get ready. Just start getting your emoji thumbs ready now. We'll have a lot of fun next week. And
real quick, Fitz. I want people to know that this live draft show, I just saw the art this morning. It looks like an album cover, and I just want you to know.
Wait, I want to see it.
I haven't seen the art.
I will send it to you. It's amazing. It's like we're in an arrow. We're all lined up in an arrow pointing to Fitz. We're all lining. Fitz. Yeah. Fitz looks kind of like an evil, an evil movie character at the front, and we're his cabal.
I love this. I'm all in for this.
I'll withhold my thoughts.
I am. I'm all in for this. Look, I can't wait to see it, and we'll just chalk that up for another group that I'm not in. Son of a biscuit. I don't get any of the communication around here. All right. Hang out with us next week. Thanks for hanging out with us today. We appreciate you.